Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast. In today's episode, we'll be reviewing last weekend's fights. That's Dalton Smith in Nottingham, Diego Pacheco over in the States, and Naoya Inoue in Japan. For those of you watching on the video version, as you can tell, we got no Harry today, sadly. Celebrating over there. Not sure what we're going to do without him. So on that note, subscribe, follow, all of that good stuff for podcast episodes every week, even when we're a man down. Straight into the business, the good stuff. I think Dalton Smith in Nottingham is has to be where we start. What an unbelievable first round and only round that was from Dalton Smith.
Where did they pluck our opponent from, mind? To be fighting for a European title, he did not look at that level at all. But I suppose you can only fight what's in front of him, and to be a European champion now, he's got nowhere else to go other than our world title shot now.
Yeah, he's got everything, hasn't he? He's got European, he's got Commonwealth, he's got WBC Silver, WBC International, I think he's got British. He's just collected all the belts. And like you say, the next up is a world title fight, particularly with how confidently he dispatched that man in that kind of performance. You think, yeah, he's ready for the next level. If that's European level, he's ready for world level.
Yeah, like the obvious one they've been building up is the Azim fight, and I don't think we see that until they both got a world title, but that'd make for a very good unification fight domestically. Yeah,
I think that's one we get down the line, and to my understanding, it's one that Azim's team has turned down, which to be honest, I don't blame them either, because I don't think it makes sense for them at this point. I think it was supposed to be on the undercard of Eubank Ben, but yeah, I think it would be an unbelievable fight, domestic clash, but that performance, Dalton Smith, I think he was just from the start, and I don't know if it was that he just hit him with a big shot and his opponent just thought, shit, okay, I'm in a fight here, because he was too quick, he was too powerful, he was too sharp. The body shots, the left hook that put him out there with 2 seconds to go was an unbelievable shot. I saw the timer coming down and I was like, surely he doesn't get the knockout. I knew the result. I hadn't watched it live. I knew the result, and even I was like, no, he doesn't get the knockout here. There's no way. And then he just sneaks it in.
Yeah, it was just 3 minutes of dominance. And I seen someone compared him to Afghan Dan from the Misfits event, and that buckled me, that did. But yeah, it just showed his level, and he is at that world level, and be interesting to see where they put him in next, because it is super lightweight, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's some good fighters at that level, especially when you get to that world title level. So yes, you got to be smart with what options you pick when you get down to those last few.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult because, like you say, it's such a high. I mean, obviously you've got Jack Cattrall, I think, at that weight class, still waiting for a good opportunity.
Yeah,
Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Sabriel Matias, I think, is fighting again. Richardson Hitchens just beat Liam Parrow, and he's got a fight with Keyshawn Davis, I think it was, lined up. And then Andy Hirayuka as well. Those, just off the name of that, is 6-7 fighters that I would want no part of if I was anyone. But I do think Dalton Smith is going to be confident regardless of who he fights, because he's shown there he's certainly good enough to be near that level or at that level. Another thing that I really liked as well was Nottingham. It being in Nottingham. Nottingham's been starved of a boxing recently because obviously Lee Wood has been out of the ring, and they've been trying to get that happen. And
mad, you still haven't seen him in.
Yeah, but the atmosphere in that arena sounded on DAZN sounded unbelievable, particularly for that Dalton Smith fight. And I just think, and obviously one of the fights early on, which we'll get onto, but it was nice to see it back in Nottingham, and I think, DAZN, Matchroom, they've taken the fact that we gave Queensbury and Frank Warren the promoter of the year seriously, haven't they? Because they've started off the year in Australia with Tasman fighters. They've got this card. They had the Diego Pacheco card in America back to back, and then this weekend they've got even more great fights coming up.
Yeah, it's nice as well to. I don't know. It just felt like, especially domestically, UK last year, because so many of the big shows were sort of happening in Saudi and elsewhere. Just not that we had loads of good shows, but it's still a sense of there's so many good stuff happening nor on our doorstep. It'd be nice to have some of them big fights like you would have had 10 plus years ago. The only one I can really think of is AJ Dubois last year, which was mega fight.
Yeah, and I think what will help is that they've had kind of time to plan this year, if that makes sense. Like 2024, we didn't really know what Riyadh season was going to look like in terms of just how big it was going to be. And so now they've kind of had time to plan with that in mind, with those huge fights that they know are going to be happening in mind. And they go, oh, okay, so we know that those guys aren't going to be fighting in the UK. So now we need to start of building our domestic sort of superstars, people like Dalton Smith, or for boxer, people like Adam Azim, that are going to be main eventing shows in the UK, hopefully with big fights going forward. Conah Walker. Need I say more? What?
It's probably already come back of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. He won maybe one of the first 10 rounds.
One of the 10.
And then that 11th round just hit him with a hell of a shot. I thought Scarff was a little bit naive to get up so quick. Cost himself a little bit there. He could have taken a bit more time, maybe caught his feet, made it to the end of the round, and then, just survived the 12th and he'd have won it. So a little bit of a learning thing for him there, but Conah Walker was so sharp, wasn't he? And that when he got that wobble, he was so sharp.
As soon as he got that opportunity, that fight reminds you of why you love watching boxing, because it was just 10 rounds of Scarff sort of showing why he'd boxed at such a high level. He was switch hitting, going between orthodox, southpaw, looked really good. Walker was having tiny bits of success where he was sitting I think it was kind of expected. The only success he was going to have going into the fight was getting onto his chest, pressurising him, get him really, because that's what Walker does. That's what has led him to win in his last few fights, is just being the aggressor. And it just took, as in normally does, it is that one punch, and it just, he landed that perfect right hand, and it just completely changed the whole night for both of them. And as soon as he smelt blood, you could, talking about the atmosphere as well,
yeah, you could hear it.
You could feel it straight away. It was just, everyone just sort of went, oh my god, he's going to do it. And you could see Sam Jones was ringside just screaming at him, and he just, I think he must have left off near 50 punches unanswered to win that fight. And some people complained that it was an early stoppage, which I don't think was fair at all, because Scarff, he done very well to stay on his feet towards the end, but he was not throwing back at all, not defending himself.
No, I think it was a matter of if, not when, he went down. I think because he didn't look like he was throwing anything anytime soon, and eventually a couple of those shots are going to get through and you're going to be on your back, and then that's when people can get hurt, and they don't need to. You just cool it off.
Because of the time he got stopped, there was still 50 seconds left in the round. So, in the shape he was in, I don't think he was going to last another 50 seconds.
No, I don't think so. It's interesting to say that about that's what we love about boxing, and it is true. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've read it, I don't know if it's the start or if there's just a chapter in Andy Clark's book, The Knockout, about why the knockout is so special and why it almost should feel unfair. It's like Scarff's won 10 rounds. He's been better than him for nigh on half an hour. He should win that fight, but then you have this capacity in just one shot to go, no, I've won this fight. That's
why you've got to stay switched on for every single second, because it is the only sport in the world where, like you said, you could be dominating for 95% of it, and then the loss just comes out of nowhere.
But also a huge amount of respect to Conah Walker to still have the sort of just the power still after taking that many shots and being dominated in the way he was. That can sap a lot out of you if your conditioning's not right. If you're and you see it sometimes with these big fighters that big punchers, that lose rounds, and they lose a lot of rounds, and then they don't have the power that they normally have in order to turn the fight, and they end up losing it. And Conah Walker still, after half an hour of taking a little bit of a beating, or certainly being beaten, still had the power, still had the strength to just one shot wobble him, and then the energy, the amount of energy expended in that finishing was unbelievable.
Yeah, and another fight that I thought was really impressive was Ellie Scotney.
Yeah,
I thought her win looked. Her opponent Mea Motu, she came to fight, to be fair. But I think that brought the best out of Scottney. It showed her full sort of technical ability and why she's one of the best British fighters out there. And was she 10-0 now? Multiple world title belts, and she's eyeing up a fight with Sky. Another one that's eyeing up a fight with Sky Nicholson.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants a piece of that Sky Nicholson pie, and who can blame her? She's a huge, obviously, fighter and a huge name. But I think, yeah, it was an unbelievable performance from Scottney. Motu was a difficult test. She was solid. She wasn't going anywhere. Scottney was never going to be able to put her out of there. She had a big shots on her. She planted her feet heavily, which meant obviously if she was able to counter her, and that was the game plan, wasn't it? Was counter Scottney.
Yeah,
but Scottney boxed smart. Ones and twos. She wasn't going in for 3-4 shot combos. It was keeping the ones and twos, boxing on the outside, keep moving, and beat her quite comprehensively in the end.
Yeah, it was a really clever fight from her, and she had to deal with the cut as well from the first round. So.
Yeah, it was a nasty cut as well, or it looked like it so early on in the first round, wasn't it?
Yeah, first round.
Yeah, it's not what you want. It was interesting. I was watching this fight just this morning, actually, when I was making myself some lunch before I came here, and I had the pasta on, and I was watching this fight, and my pasta was burning behind me, and I didn't even clock it because I was just like properly engrossed in it, just watching it. And it does bring me back to that. Obviously, I spoke recently to Tasha Jonas at the show or the press conference for her and Lauren's fight, and obviously the all-female card on there. If you haven't checked out any of the content, please do, because there's so many great interviews. If I say so myself. No, so Tasha spoke about the sort of 2-3 minute rounds, and again, it goes back to how many times do the women's fights steal the show a little bit. Obviously this one had the Conah Walker fight, which very much stole the show, but they're always great fights, and I think that 2 minute rounds is so much to do with it.
Yeah, because they've got that short sort of span to do their work. It just, you feel like with the female fight, it is just a bit more action, and like with some of the male fights, it takes a few rounds to sort of warm up, but it always seems from the female perspective it's just straight into action from minute one.
I don't know if you noticed it, like if you go on the DAZN stream, like on DAZN, and you click round one, the first frame where it starts round one, when the bell goes, Scottney is already like almost past the halfway line. Motu's basically there, like they've basically sprinted at each other to get going, and it's just like, that's what you want, If that was two males fighting, it would go down as like an all-time, like, they just met in the middle and they had a scrap sort of thing. And I feel like it's something we say a lot, and I hope with that show in the Royal Albert Hall that we do see the women get the platform they deserve, because there's so many good fights out there, and that is just one of them.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that show, because it'll hopefully showcase the talent these female fighters have, and why people should be sitting down. I know we're in an age now where there's so many fights on every weekend, but yeah, you want to sit down and take notice of these fights, because they're just so good to watch.
Yeah, and next up for Scottney, I think it should take that. Apologies, sorry, Yamaleth Mercado fight. Obviously, she's the WBC champion. I think it's 3 belts now that Scottney's got. Roll the dice. So what? You're young. You've only had 10 fights. You can come again. Yeah. And I do think it's a fight that she's got a very good chance in. Because I think what we're seeing now, and I think it was Sonny Edwards that said it on the commentary, and I heard him say, and it was interesting that he kind of pointed out that what we're seeing now is a generation of fighters in the female division that have fought from a young age, rather than picking up boxing later on. And you can see the quality difference between the young fighters coming up now and the older champions that have held the divisions for a while. And I think Scottney's a perfect example of that. She's a cut above everyone that she's fought so far, and who's to say she can't go all the way?
Yeah, I thought she looked really impressive, and I get what you mean. You see this sort of new generation, the likes of her, Sky Nicholson, there's just that sort of technical class just seems to have gone up again. And yeah, they're just very good fighters to watch, not just female fighters, just fighters in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were of the inclination to stay up late for these fights, I wasn't personally, but you could have gone straight from that great show straight over to DAZN in America for that Diego Pacheco card, which was it was another great card. Diego Pacheco had a really tough test in Stephen Nelson at the top, a real proper good test for the WBO International and the USA Super Middle.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good learning test for Pacheco. He sort of built into the fight. I thought from more I didn't watch the fight from start to finish, but from sort of the highlights I've watched for Nelson, sort of looked to give him, especially in the early rounds, a lot to think about. He was sort of really out of range and then would rush in and sort of try to put pressure on, but I think Pacheco was starting to work him out round by round and sort of timing right when he was coming in and just catching him. He caught him with some really good hooks and uppercuts, and towards the end of the fight looked really impressive and showed why he's at that sort of upper level and chasing, well, probably the likes of Canelo, fights like that. Well, he's the man at the top and so that's what everyone's chasing, but those sort of big fights. But credit to Stephen Nelson, I thought he was really tough and showed, well, that's his first loss, so showed exactly why he's was a 20-0 fighter going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stephen Nelson, I think and it's probably the first time I've ever agreed with Chris Mannix, had it 3-1 to Stephen Nelson after 4. But like you said, and I think we were talking about it earlier, about how Pacheco sort of just builds himself into fights. He takes a little while to get that rhythm together, get that timing together. And when he does, he's a real problem. And we saw it with the Suletsky fight. He took a little while, it was fairly even, and he sort of built into it. And then he obviously was able to get that big shot and finish it off. And he didn't get that one big shot land in this fight. But it's good to see a big puncher not just have that. He's not a one-trick pony. No. He can win boxing fights, which is what you have to do. And that super middleweight division is just waiting for opportunities at Canelo or Canelo to eventually hang up the gloves or whatever it is. I think you've got William Skull, I think it is, Cuban, is the IBF champion. So maybe that could be a good fight for Pacheco. You've got Christian and Billy, who I think is a really exciting fighter, who maybe you can match them two up as sort of a it's a sort of final Canelo eliminator sort of thing, with if Canelo is going to be fighting Crawford. But yeah, Pacheco, again, he's just got something about him. I like him.
He's got power as well. You can hear the noise every time when he proper plants his feet and let his hands go. You can hear the shots. They just thud. Yeah, he is, in terms of super middleweights, one of the best to watch, I think.
He's got that sort of strength in the same way that Hamza Shiraz does, where you look at them and obviously comparatively to the rest of their weight class, they're quite tall and they're not spindly, obviously, but they are in comparison to the guys in their weight class, and yet they just carry this huge amount of power. I mean, what is he, sort of 80-90% finish percentage, I think, or 80% at this moment, which is, to get to 23-0 with 80% finishes, you've got some power. It was a great fight to see. But an even better fight and fighter, I think, to see was Andy Cruz on that.
My prospect of the year.
Yeah. It's 5-0 now, he is. And it was very good. 20-1 Salcido. Don't get me wrong, he's not the best in the way, he's not some super champion or anything, but Andy Cruz just looked so many cuts above him. Really pressed for the finish in the last round, and I really thought he was going to get it, and he just held on, did Salcido. But yeah, another great performance.
Yeah. How often do you see someone going 5-0 take on a 21-0 fighter and completely dominate?
Yeah, never really. You just don't really see it.
Like, obviously he's in a sort of class of his own because of his amateur pedigree, but it's exciting to see where his sort of career trajectory is going to go, and when you look back at the end of his career, what he's achieved, because I think he could be such a talent, and it's not until he gets to that elite level and against the very best at that weight class that I think we see him get tested. Yeah, absolutely. And what's really interesting is everyone talks about the amateur pedigree, and obviously the amateur pedigree is impressive and whatnot, but what he's actually done, which is really clever, is he's come away as an amateur and gone, right, I'm a great amateur, I'm a great boxer, but I want to learn to become a great professional. I'm not going to try and... So he's really learned, and I think in his last fight, I think it was on the Riyadh season show well, that was his last fight, wasn't it? He fought on the undercard. I'm just double checking before I... yes, Antonio Moran. On that card, he fought with a very much more... He planted his feet, and he got hit a couple times, and I think it was on the commentary was saying that it was like, Andy Cruz is getting caught a little bit more often than he tends to, but actually he got the finish in the 7th round, and he clearly was learning and I think it's in Philly he's training,
he's learning the style of how to be a professional, and I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, because you have got to make that sort of adaptation, from a amateur to professional is completely different. Like we've said plenty of times, there's very good amateurs that don't make good professionals, and there's plenty of professionals that have done really well and done nothing or amateur. So it's still, even though he's achieved so much already as a boxer, it's still a lot of work to be put in to sort of get world titles and whatever other ambitions he's got.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what, actually, I haven't watched the full fight, but Ernesto Mercado as well. I don't know if you've seen the knockout on Twitter. It was a big shot. Anyone who's listening or watching on YouTube, as always, don't click off this. Keep this running. Go and have a look at that knockout, because it was a big shot that ended that one for him. And another great card. Fair play to Matchroom. That's back-to-back great shows for them on the same night. And again, Inoue. He's something else, isn't he? And I know people will say it was a crap opponent, it was, cherry-picked, all of this, and the issues. And I think Eddie was having a pop at him, saying he's fought no one good recently. Come on now. He is something else.
He is a different animal altogether, and he just looked as if he could have just jumped out of bed, rolled in there, and just dealt with it. And I felt sorry for Kim, because he sort of, he was doing as best as he could, and then they got that fourth round, and he just made the stupid mistake, I think, of just going, yeah, come on, keep it going. And I think Inoue just looked at him and just thought, if you want it, I'm gonna come and fucking take your head off. And them two right hands just completely sent him flying. Yeah,
because he sort of jeered him on and said, come on, son, have a bit of this. And Inoue hit him with the first 1-2, and it looked like it had a bit of vengeance behind it. And then the guy had the brilliant idea of, I'll go, yeah, come on, have another one, Inoue. He had another pop at the cherry and basically put him through the ring. Like, it was... Yeah, it was a scary knockout, and it shows, I think, it's a reminder of, albeit it wasn't necessarily the greatest fight in the world, it was a reminder of just what level he's at. We would have liked to see a great fight, but it is a reminder of, Kim was no slouch. He was not an Inoue opponent, but he was not a bad opponent, and Inoue just looked a step above, as expected.
And when you see him in, it was the arena when they were in, all the fans, it was just like... They're just sort of watching it, just waiting for... It's just waiting for that moment.
There's an inevitability to it, isn't there? Yeah. You almost... You're sat there thinking, it's not if it happens, it's when it happens.
But it looks like we're going to see him in Vegas and Saudi Arabia this year now.
Yeah, it'd be nice. And, Harry's not here, so I'm going to do his due diligence. We want the Akhmadaliev fight. That's what he'd be sat there saying now.
People say... and even I've said it, I'd like to see it, but in terms of the Akhmadaliev fight... If he hadn't lost to Parles, it probably would have happened. So
yeah, true.
But I'm sure there's got to come a point whether that could be the Vegas fight, because obviously Akhmadaliev trains, I think, in California. So
and obviously Bob Arum is the promoter of Naoya Inoue, and Top Rank could put a great show on in Vegas with Naoya Inoue on the main event, but also get the ticket sellers from America as well and put on a great show, and it would be wonderful to see.
But it's just mad, and you see the names people even I think in it was comments on TikTok, I think, of one of the videos we put up, and some people I want to see Akhmadaliev, and then others Nick Ball will take him out, and then it was Bam Rodriguez should jump up and wait. I think
someone said
fighters,
as well that he should fight Tank Davis. I think I saw somewhere, and he's one of those fighters. He's regardless of what weight class he's in, it doesn't matter. Just fight him.
Just chuck him in with everyone.
Yeah, I think he should fight Diego Pacheco. I think he should fight. I reckon he could do a good fight against Moses Atoma. It's just people just pick out names no matter the weight class, but it is because I'm not saying he's not fighting those later names, but it's because he is that good. You do think. Well, maybe he could actually jump up to featherweight and beat Nick Ball. Maybe he could jump up.
People are just looking for what's the biggest way we can test him to people just I think it'll get to a point where people will just be fucking, ooh, can we get that's just gonna beat them just so we can finish it off.
I think the best chance we'd get would be if you gave Bam Rodriguez enough time at the same weight class to be a genuine super bantamweight and Inoue still be a genuine super bantamweight, I think Bam Rodriguez would be your closest to being able to outbox Inoue and survive the knockout. But I still don't think he would necessarily.
I think Inoue's closer to going up weight, though, if anything. Isn't he?
Exactly, yeah. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but I think that would be the best chance, but I still don't think it is a healthy chance of him doing it. I think he probably retires unbeaten, unless he moves up to featherweight and really decides to sort of push himself and get some big fights. But even then, I wouldn't be surprised if he just beat them all.
Much he just cleared up featherweight as well.
Yeah. Would you be surprised, though? Would you be like, I can't believe he's done that?
He does just look a class above every time you see him, and
Yeah, he really does, and it's just frustrating. And that's the reason people won the Akhmadaliev fight so much, is because people are desperate for a test, and people get it in their head that this man's a test. This man's going to be a test, and he's proven again and again that no one has been a test for him.
I think it's a case of Matchroom selling Akhmadaliev well as well, and
yeah,
like he could get in there and a way could spark him out like he's done with everyone else, and then you're like, oh my god, thought that was going to be his big test, and he's just steamrolled through another fighter. Yeah,
this is a 13-1 fighter that obviously, like you mentioned, lost to Tapales, so he's by no means the sort of it's not a complete sort of
guarantee
that he should be fighting Inoue. I think he should, and I think he could, and I think it'd be a good fight, but it's by no means a guarantee. I think it was, on reflection, I think it was a great weekend of boxing this weekend.
Yeah.
I think, Matchroom, as well, speaking on Matchroom, the Jack Cattrall trailer for his next fight, if you haven't watched it already, is unbelievable. Huge respect to Matchroom, taking a little leaf out of the Riyadh season book, and it is so good.
When you sent it in, I watched it. I thought that's brilliant.
It just had me
really good.
Yeah, huge respect to Matchroom for that. Putting things together and just up in the levels of boxing in this country, around the world. It's great to see, isn't it?
Yeah, it is always nice to see like little bits like the Riyadh season ones are obviously like Hollywood movie trailers.
Yeah.
Even when you just see like little things like the videos Joe Parker was putting out and things like that, it just like it already adds to what is a great sport.
Yeah, we love to see it. I think that pretty much wraps it up for our review of all the fights this weekend. Obviously, Pacheco, Dalton Smith, etc. If you enjoyed the episode, leave it a like, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, all that good stuff. We've got lots of good stuff actually on the channel at the moment. Like I mentioned, the interviews from before. I spoke to JD Cuervo, young Welsh fighter, so there's that interview on the channel as well. Lots of great content, so subscribe for all that good stuff and all of our podcasts every single week, twice a week. On that note, we'll catch you on later in the week for previewing next weekend's fights.
Punches chance. Punches chance podcast.